Pull up, grab the fuel nozzle, and get ready to fuel up on trends and strategies to grow your travel center business in this episode of The Truck Stop's Here, brought to you by NATSO. Now, here's your host, Amy Toner.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of The Truck Stop's Here. I'm your host, Amy Toner. You are listening to The Truck Stops Here, NATSO's podcast. NATSO is the National Trade Association for Truck Stops, and our mission is to advance the success of truck stops and travel centers. And this podcast is just one of the many ways that we do that. Today we have the pleasure of interviewing Marc Whitener of Refreshment Solutions. He's the chair of the NAMA board. Welcome.
Great to be here, Amy.
Thanks. Okay, so I thought I'd start and we just talk about the terms. So usually we end our podcast by talking about the controversial terms for truck stops, which is, truck stops, travel center, or travel plazas. And when I was doing research on your industry, it seemed like there might be some changing terms too, like automatic merchandising, convenient services, automatic retail. So can you tell me what's the right terms and what do they mean?
I think all of those terms are indicative or have been used or are in use by our industry. Really, the evolution is over time we've seen independent operators become one size fits all. So if you go back 2 or 3 decades, there were vending operators, there were office coffee operators. Today, most operators provide all of those services, plus what we call unattended retail solutions, which are effectively self-checkout solutions. We call them micro markets. I think most folks would think of them as mini convenience stores.
Okay, yeah, see, I was right. There's a lot of different terms.
Yep. And convenience services has really been something that NAMA came up with because the common denominator of all of those services is really convenience for the consumer. And so it really encompasses all of those operations, plus pantry services and other things that our operators supply to locations.
Okay. So fast and easy service is especially important in the truck stop industry, which is why we've been encouraging NATSO members to embrace kiosks and vending machines for years. We feel like they're a good fit. Do you think this is right?
I do. I think wherever consumers are today, they're demanding just-in-time delivery. Whatever their preferences are, they want them on demand, easy to access, and many times prefer solutions that are unattended. But certainly unattended provides opportunities that many times aren't economically feasible when you're trying to do something with full-time attendance, and today's labor market's even made that more acute.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys partnered with any truck stops or travel centers, or is that not your market?
We have a little bit at Refreshment Solutions, not as full as we'd like to, but we have in certain components of our business, especially where truck stops in Louisiana have a gambling component.
Gambling. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So we've provided services there from tobacco type products to beverages to really just to fill in for both their operator or the locations services for their own employees, but also when they can't provide 24-hour-a-day services, but they still have customers that want access. So we've provided those more as a way to subsidize what they're doing. But doing a lot of what you're talking about in more public access locations now. So large buildings downtown where there are, many employers, but we'll put in an unattended retail store on the first floor that services the entire building. Same thing in hospitals, putting our toe in the water at airports. So we're seeing a lot of those solutions, and I think they'll translate well into the truck stop industry.
Okay, yeah, I've been seeing, I was just at the airport the other day and I saw that as well. Okay, so I would imagine the pandemic has sped up the innovation in your industry. Did it impact innovation, pricing?
Well, pricing has been impacted, I guess, as in all industries, just because of inflation and disruptions in the supply chain. But in terms of technology, I think what we've seen in our industry is really it sped up innovation that was already happening, especially with regard to touchless solutions. And ultimately, most of the innovation is around transactions. So whether it be better adoption or faster adoption of cashless solutions, all the way down to just no touch point delivery of products. Really, it's taken friction out of the transaction process. Many of those things were things that were in their infancy going into the pandemic and got accelerated as a result.
Are there like a lot more players, a lot more companies involved?
Beginning to be.
Okay. So what do you wish truck stops and travel centers knew about partnering with you?
Well, I think most importantly, what our industry really represents is, we hear a lot about the last mile delivery. We're really that last foot of delivery. So, we're probably best in class at low cost, small drop delivery. And we supply consumers where they work, where they play, where they learn, and that's our core business. We're good at it, and we really, I think there's an opportunity to work with truck stops. Exactly what that model looks like, I think we need to work together to try to figure that out. In some cases, it may be blended solutions where truck stops are doing many of the same things that we would supply to them, but we could supply it to them either as a gap when they have gaps in their services, maybe at certain shifts, or even when they just have peak demand times that it's just hard for them to provide the staffing to meet that demand in a timely way. So I think the models will have to get explored and hashed out, but our industry is really good at last yard delivery, and I think we can add a lot of value with that component to the truck stops.
I would think the amount of space in truck stops would also be good. A lot of times they just, they can be little, but they can also be big, right? So they have opportunities to have a lot of different solutions in them. Absolutely.
And I think we could work together even, just my personal experience with truck stops, we're seeing more and more when we travel. Those truck stops generally have some type of fast food component, sometimes self-op, sometimes I assume contracted out to local franchisees for fast food. Sometimes those facilities are utilized part of the day, but I think if we partner together, some of those things could be utilized as, say, ghost kitchens or whatever to help us better, utilize our own supply chain. So I just think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity that if both our industry and the truck stop industry are willing to be open and work together, there can be a lot of asset utilization.
Absolutely. I was just we have this HR share group. It's a group of HR professionals across the industry. And one of the things that they were saying is that they're closing their QSRs at night when they don't have enough staff. Truck stops are often in pretty remote areas, and so they're hit by the labor shortage like everybody else. So that makes perfect sense to me that during those hours at night when drivers are still on the road and looking for warm food. Yes.
And I think we could use, probably help with, so maybe we could source some of our fresh products through. So not only are we making deliveries, we're also picking up and redelivering to at-work employees and whatever. There could probably be brand utilizations. I just think there's really, we're in its infancy, but I think the sky's the limit. And I want to thank you guys for participating in our most recent NAMA show and being a part of the Imagination Way, which we're very excited about.
Absolutely. I know a bunch of our staff went and they came back with a lot of ideas. Okay, so is there anything about your industry that is misunderstood?
I think traditionally our industry has been sometimes in the crosshairs for the healthier initiatives, particularly in schools. And I think what's important for what we'd like, America to know and your listeners to know is that NAMA has partnered with the Healthier America lobby and has created a Healthier, Better for You program. And we are committed to having 33% of our offerings be Better for You offerings within 2 years. And we've made a lot of progress in that, maintained a lot of that progress during the pandemic. And our partners are telling us that our industry's now ahead of the curve in that regard. So we're really excited about that.
That's awesome. Okay, so I was going to ask you about anything that you've seen that's especially cool in the industry.
When people ask us this, usually they're looking for some type of consumer-facing solution, and there are a tremendous number of those. Mm-hmm. But I think what's the most interesting thing for me in the industry is really the new technologies that have come to our space. Specifically, I can give you an example of one. It's Hivery. They've partnered with Cantaloupe, who's a longtime logistics supplier and also a cashless supplier and processor in our industry. But ultimately, what Hivery does is use artificial intelligence to help operators understand consumers better and make sure that our menu selections are more targeted right down to the individual SKU, individual location. So it's not traditional type merchandising where we're looking at, one size fits all, or let's make sure we have core products. It's really, hey, what works best in this location, this SKU, this place on the shelf. So I think those are exciting things, both in terms of making us better at understanding and working and supplying consumers what they want, but also in doing it cost effectively and managing our inventory better.
Okay. All right. So we'll end with, where do you think the industry is going?
I think consumers in general are more and more demanding. We saw this before the pandemic, and pandemic just accelerated that consumers, want what they want when they want it. They want on-site delivery, and ultimately, our industry has been good at that for a long time. And I think that trend will continue and create, greater and more opportunities for our industry. Hopefully, we can work together with folks like you guys to make that happen.
Absolutely. Okay, so if you have the patience for it, I'll ask you a few just fun questions before I let you go. They're very easy. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so we call this is our fast fill. We call it just a few fun questions. So what is your go-to on the road snack?
Probably, well, it depends on if I'm traveling with my wife, we'll tend towards more healthier solutions. So if I'm traveling alone, it might be fast food, but if I'm traveling with my wife, usually some type of nuts, and usually usually water or flavored water.
Okay. Do you prefer to drive or ride?
Ride if I can, but usually I'm driving.
Okay. How do you take your truck stop coffee?
Black.
Okay, and this might not be good for you, but our controversial question is it truck stop, travel center, or travel plaza? Do you know?
I think of it nowadays as travel center. I don't really know the difference between travel center and travel plaza. They both seem like a positive connotation to me, but I just know when I stop into what I would call modern truck stops, it's really more to me of a travel center because it's a family experience. I understand they're targeting truckers and there's a lot of truckers there, but it's really a place that everyone feels safe and secure and can get whatever we need when we need it. So.
Okay, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast, and thank you to our listeners for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at natso.com/podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. If you have any questions that you'd like answered on the podcast, I hope you'll reach out to me at editor@natso.com. Thank you again, Mark.
Thanks for having us.
The Truck Stops Here was brought to you by NATSO, the association representing truck stops and travel centers. Visit natso.com for more information. The Truck Stops Here is produced by NATSO in collaboration with Human Factor. Producers are Amy Toner and Darren Schulte.